Hello, and welcome to Keeping It Real, the podcast where we talk to the most interesting people in real estate. And we've got a great one for you today. But first, before we get started, if you're catching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us out. Leave a comment if there's anything you want to know, and we'll be sure to follow up with you. All right. Our guest today is Craig Schneider. And if you've been around Real Geeks land for long enough, you will know who this guy is. He's a big deal in our community. He is always at the unofficial Real Geeks user conference. And he's generally got some of the most advanced thoughts on how to run your Real Geeks. So I'm excited to talk to him today. Craig, give us a little introduction.
Craig Schneider from Rochester, New York, in the cold area of New York where we have farms and land and a bunch of other things. So the whole state of New York is not all concrete and skyscrapers for those of you who have never been. So, but we have a small-ish brokerage in Rochester. We have about 25 to 30 agents at any given time of the year. And we give on our agents, and we've been using Real Geeks from day one. And we love the platform. We always have. And I'm just a big advocate of the whole platform as a whole versus as just a website. And those are some things I'd love to share with the group today.
Yeah. And so we're going to discuss basically, when people think about like an advanced tech stack in real estate, your name comes up immediately. And so we're going to do like kind of an overview of like how you're set up and what you're doing. But first, you were at the unofficial Real Geeks user conference, and the broad consensus there was that you by far have the best beard in real estate.
Well, thanks. I don't know how much competition there is. I think a lot of people in real estate keep it a little cleaner because they want to get more clients. But I've gotten yelled at by some of my bigger clients in the past. But one time I shaved it off, and I basically defeated me for like a year.
No, I say go for the beard. I'm pro beard. Yeah, and I guess the other thing to give you an insight into what Craig's going on is you've got a off-road adventure van. So when I rolled up to the unofficial Real Geeks user conference, I was scoping out the parking lot, and I'm like, that is a masterwork. Starlink terminal on the top, like big tires, winch. So at some other date, we're going to have to do running real estate. You're running your real estate business off grid because you've got multiple areas of this thing figured out.
Yeah, we wanted to be able to work from anywhere and have all the creature comforts that we're used to, anywhere we're at. And that adventure van has really given us the opportunity to do some of that. And I know you're kind of into a little bit of overlanding yourself, from what I understand. I just got my first Toyota, which we can talk about offline as well.
Okay. Yeah. Before we turn this into, Chris and Craig nerd out about, forerunners and lift kits, we'll get it back on track. So Real Geeks. Okay. So talk to us a little bit about the basics of the way that you have your account set up, and maybe, because there's a lot of different avenues that we could drill into here. I know you're big into lead routing, but maybe actually the place that I want to start is you told me at the unofficial Real Geeks user conference that it is mandatory for all of your reps to set up save searches. And so that might be a great place to just kick off this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take over a little bit beyond that because I can't help myself because I love all this so much and have such a passion for it. I mean, truly, I could talk 8 hours about just this one thing. I mean, to be honest with you. And I want to kind of lead off with, though I have all of this passion and love all these techie things, the real truth to the amazing thing about Real Geeks is the simplicity of the platform and how easy you can immediately set it up out of the box and how potent it is and how well it can create what you need, which is leads, right? So we wanted a platform. When we were looking for platforms, we wanted a platform that we could capture names from. We didn't want just, we didn't want to just provide a search tool. We wanted something that someone could actually sign up for and use right out of the gate. So over the years, I've gotten, my fingers a little bit more into the meatballs and, have 20,000 other things going on behind the scenes, which I've shared and willing to share with anybody. But the reality is you don't need any of that stuff. When you start needing that is when you start building a bigger team, because the bigger your team gets, the harder it gets to, number one, keep consistent follow through processes, lead distribution, follow up. All these things become issues that you didn't have before. So I want to start off by saying, hey, don't think Real Geeks is complicated at all. And that is one of the number one reasons we chose Real Geeks, is because we knew we had to teach. And when we picked Real Geeks, this was 10 years ago. So technology has changed, or I shouldn't say technology. The consumer has changed quite a bit over the years. So when you go 10 years ago back in real estate, the average real estate agent barely knew how to turn a computer on. And I mean, it sounds crazy. I mean, when I first started brokerage, we were like the spearhead of writing offers in Authentisign or, in Transaction Desk. And everybody's like, how are you doing this? This is so like 40 years from now. And it's like, no, it's happened. We should have already been doing this. And, so the reality is that we wanted something that anybody could use, and it wasn't complicated to teach them how to use, and it wasn't, a distraction for us. So that's the reason we went with Real Geeks, because the simplicity of, number one, the setup, number two, the CRM is easy to use. Now, yeah, it doesn't have a few functions, but you start adding all of that complexity into it. What happens is the average user gets overwhelmed and they don't want to use it. So that's the reason we like this system, is the simplicity and the user interface that is created with it. So you said, what is our number one thing? Well, our number one thing is making sure search is set up. It is because we talk about drip campaigns and all this other stuff, which once again, we have a free shared one on the library, which will send your people stuff for 400 days plus. But the reality is that's not what's getting us interaction. What's getting us interaction is the saved searches. So when someone comes into our platform, if they give us their name and their phone number, we're going to set them up on a search on our website. Now, the website will do it itself, and sometimes it does it better than other times. It depends on where the lead's coming from, where you're routing it from. So if you're routing it from your realtor.com or your Zillow account, or if it's a pay-per-click, depending on which way it comes in, sometimes that search is set up really good, and sometimes it's not set up at all. So there are different things, and so you should keep an eye on that. So we have a checks and balances. Basically, one of the rules we have with our team is if you're taking a lead, you have to set up a search. If you can't do that most basic function, then we're sorry, we're going to have to turn you off from leads until you can start learning the basics. But the reason that's so important is it's a drip campaign that's automatically built into the system that's going to send them listings or items of value, I call it, to your customers that they actually care about. That's the thing they care most about, is like what homes are coming on the market. And
absolutely,
the beauty of it is we have tons of customers that are working with other realtors in our market that like using our platform. We have a few. It's crazy to say, and I still can't believe they do this, but we have real estate agents that work for other brokerages that tell their customers to come to our website, which I think is nutty, but because they like it and it's easy to use. And I think that's what, the beauty of it is if you set it up really basic and don't overcomplicate it with all these graphics, and all that stuff is great and it looks pretty, but the reality is people just want a user interface that works easy and is fast. And the more of that other junk you load into it, the more you're going to slow it down, and you're going to hurt your own SEO and all this other stuff. And, those are things we can talk about.
This sounds a lot like, when I'm talking to our in-house product team, Dylan, our head of product, will always say, like, he's a big proponent of the start with why. Like, why is the person there? Right. And so it sounds like you're telling me, people come to your website to see what homes are on the market, like see, what photos are there, basic information about the home. So don't get in the way of that. Right. Like, deliver that value, like the way they want to receive it.
Yeah. I mean, your front page or your entry page to your website better be, exactly what they're looking for. The quick search, not a photo of you. Nobody cares about you. If you think people care about you, call me up. I'll tell you the real story behind it. The more you think people care about you, the less houses you're going to sell. That's all I'm saying. So make it about your customer, focus on their success, and you'll get success out of it. You know, I'm not saying let people treat you like garbage, but what I am saying is, you know, don't expect other people to roll out a carpet for you. They're not going to do that. So the first thing you do is you make it all about the customer, make that interface like right in their face, like what they want. You know, how do people search for homes in your market? Do they search by school district? Do they search by price point? Do they search by feature? You know, are they looking for waterfront homes? Are they looking for golf front homes or golf course front homes or whatever they call them? You know, whatever it is particular in your market, you want to have that as like right in their face so they can easily click it and see the stuff they care about, because the more you can create that experience for somebody, the better. Now, once again, you don't have to overcomplicate this. I mean, the Real Geeks system out of the gate is really, really already designed in such a way. And I wouldn't like try to make it this, you know, gorgeous, you know, piece. It doesn't need to be. You got to remember it's a tool, and you want that tool to be easy to use. And you got to remember, the more complexity you put in it, the more you change it, the more problems you're going to have. And I'll tell you why, because of this new day and age where we have all of these different devices that have different resolutions and screen sizes and all this stuff, the most simple little thing that you think is so easy to change, all of a sudden doesn't look good on a phone, or doesn't work on a tablet, or doesn't work on a particular new tablet that just came on that's a higher resolution, or whatever it is. There's all this complexity that you don't understand is happening behind the scenes. So
I want to add on to that, because I think there's an important thing that you know, our customers don't necessarily see from the front that we see from the back. So we see all of the traffic across all of our customer sites in aggregate. And so when we're making changes to templates or to user interface elements, we are A/B testing those. And because we can do that at scale, we're able to figure out what's statistically significant and what's going to improve versus hurt much quicker. So kind of to your point, you know, I don't think that you want to like dramatically overthink, and like good enough to get into the market is like what you want to do, rather than getting bogged down. Like kind of, you know, in terms of some of the really finer points, like let us worry about you know, that stuff. And you know, you guys go sell houses.
So I want people to walk away from this conversation with like something basic. So if you're a brand new agent, and this holds true for me, so let's say I was moving from New York State. I mean, I would never do that because we got great politics and we got great taxes here. So and great weather. So like, why would I ever leave? But let's say I did, I was going to move.
And Texas is full, by the way.
Yeah. Well, let's say I was going to move to Texas. The benefit of like me knowing what I know with Real Geeks is I can pick up and feel incredibly confident that I can move to any market in the United States. And this is exactly what I'll do. I'll give you guys the exact tips of what I would do. Number one, I'd buy a Real Geeks site. It's literally one of the things I feel like I underpay for in real estate. Like there's all this stuff you pay for, and most of you are like, where am I getting my monies back on that? But with the Real Geeks, for $300 a month, or I don't know what your exact number is, but it's around that. It's like a steal of a deal for all the stuff you get baked into that program. So that would be my first stack. Number two, then you'd have to join a local board, obviously. And if you're in the market, you're already on that board, and you're going to have to request that the board sync their data with the Real Geeks system, which in most markets they're already sunk, so that you just got to get permission to do that. So that would be the second thing I would do. The third thing I would do is I would figure out where I'm going to get some leads. So first off, I would dump all my own people in there if I met anybody. If I was going, whatever I could get, if I was doing open houses, or if I had a resource in that, I would put all those people in there. And I would let them know I was doing it, and I would start sending them information right away. But let's say I just moved there and I don't know a single person. That's fine. I would go to the biggest platform. I would go to Google, and I would set up a pay-per-click program. Now, I'm able to do that. Your average person may or may not be able to do that. The beauty is that Real Geeks offers that service. So if you don't want to take that on your own, then go ahead and have Real Geeks pay them a small fee to help manage that account. If you want to take that on your own, my advice would be to not go for the big or the main keywords. You're never going to win on those. You're going to spend a lot of money on those real quick. Go for the long tail keywords. So what I mean by this is look for things that someone would type in that would be a couple keywords longer. So, you know, everybody's going to type in real estate or listings in Dallas, right? But they might not type in listings under 200,000 in Dallas, or listings on the lake in Dallas, or whatever else. So type in all those additional keywords so that you can easily purchase those for a price that's affordable, and it keeps your buy power down and gets you leads. So
are you running your own paid search ads?
We are, yeah. We're doing it. We did it. I set it up originally 10 years ago, and I did all these long keywords. I think I have running right now, it might be like 500,000 keywords. And the way I did this was I came up with like all the keywords of things people would type. And I did some research and figured it out. And it's probably something I should refresh. But, I found all those keywords. And then I built like a Excel spreadsheet, and then I dumped my towns in my area, my towns and my zip codes and my cities into the front end of that. So that long keyword became even longer, and it doubled up, and then you end up with 500,000 keywords. And when someone types in that exact thing, Google likes it because that's exactly what you're looking for, and Google connects you right up. And then the beauty is you dump all that into Google, and Bing knows they're like always chasing after Google. So they'll let you take your Google keyword stuff and just migrate it out to the other side. So, but once again, you don't have to do this. You can pay Real Geeks once again, like the website, you guys are incredibly generous with what you charge to manage a keywords account. So,
well, and this is a close to home topic for me because I started my career as paid search manager. And so over the years, I've definitely talked to a lot of realtors that have asked me questions. And for the most part, I was working for bigger companies. But, a lot of times my advice is like, get help, because Google ads is tremendously complicated and you can screw it up. So, I would highly encourage people to, use a program like Real Leads or something similar. And it's not until you get to a higher level of scale that it kind of makes sense to bring it in-house. I know, just knowing your personality, it's not surprising to me that you have done this particular tactic, which makes a lot of sense and is actually kind of similar to what we're doing on the back end for our customers. But this is a fun one.
Yeah. So I think, once again, you have to get leads from somewhere to dump in there. Your most expensive option is going to be to get them from Zillow or realtor.com, which Real Geeks also does have integrations with them. So they'll directly come in and you can stay on top of it. My advice is get them off of those platforms as quick as you can. The problem with going that route versus getting your own pay-per-click is they're already used to the Realtor app and the Zillow app. So it's harder to get them off of that. Though we do everything we can to get them on our platform and not on Zillow, so they keep on clicking other agent stuff. It's tough, but pay-per-click's the easiest way, in my opinion, to do that, because you have more control of the process, because they're coming to your site only and you're not sharing the information with somebody else.
Right. And I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but one of our sister companies did a presentation recently, and it was basically the moral of the story was easy is expensive. So a lot of realtors, like these Zillow leads, they like the pay at closing leads, but it's sort of like economics 101. Like, if a company is going to give you an easy lead that is going to like basically just be an order taker type situation, they have already extracted the value out of that thing, right? And that's why that's why it's easy for you. And so the nice thing about paid search leads is you keep more of that ROI. The cost of that is frequently the amount of time that it's going to take to nurture that lead to success. And so, a lot of times we see people having, start to see ROI, let's say in 6 months, they've got a couple of closings, and then by like 24 months, they're all of a sudden raving fans because, they're way in the black.
I agree. I mean, so it gets better with time, like real estate does, right? I mean, you start off in real estate and you're just looking for a single customer, but then, those people become great resources for referrals and stuff like that. So it gets, as you become more seasoned or in that area longer, it gets easier and easier and easier. And same thing with your pay-per-click budgets and stuff like that. And if you're doing it right, like I said, setting them up on searches and staying in touch with people, you're going to get people 2 years down the road that are going to be customers that, you didn't even have access to before. So there's a lot of benefits to that consistency in your tools. So, I mean, just in short, so basically I'm buying a Real Geek site. I'm figuring out a way to get leads either through paying somebody to help me manage that or to do it on my own. And then basically, I would say it would take, for someone who's never even opened a Real Geeks thing, I would say it would take a day to 3 days max to set up your site really nice. Don't overcomplicate it. Do the basics, read their tech thing. That's what I did. I just would watch the video, do that step, then go back, watch the next videos, do that step. There's also services that'll set that up for you if you don't want to do that as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Once again, don't try to make it overcomplicated. You know, if you want a fancy website that's a business card, run one of those separate of this and have a directional page coming to this, or have a page separate within this. I mean, it's crazy to overcomplicate this. And then basically I would set the lead thing up. I personally would click a few buttons to set up the, what do we call it? It's the, sorry, I got it written down here, but I got so much stuff written down. I would turn on the Mega 419-day buyer workflow in the Real Geeks library. It will take you less than 10 minutes to set that up, fill up, just change the stuff in it so it applies to you, and have that running already where it's sending out text message and everything else for you. So in 10 minutes, you could be on Real Geeks with a workflow going on in the background. And then I would I would call my leads when I got them. So when they come in, I would actually call them and like build relationships with people and see if I can.
Shocking. Call your leads.
Yeah.
Call your leads. Okay. So there's a bunch of stuff I want to dig into there. For the listeners, I want to just give a couple other references here. So you were talking about, okay, if I had moved geographies, you know, what would I do? The interesting thing is our last podcast guest, Susie Ellis, had done exactly that. So, you know, Craig just gave you the, you know, bullet point list of how you would start a business in a new geography. Susie is our most recent interviewee that did that. And then if you want to go way back in time, I think that's Lisa Shinati's origin story as well. So there's a lot of, you know, resources for that. Okay. So on the Mega list, which we're going to have links down below, you guys can check this out. You know, maybe even before signing up for Real Geeks, we'll expose it somehow. Producer Sean will figure that one out. There we go. There's a buried treasure for him. When do you think most of your people convert in that? Like, if you had to give an estimate of like how much activity you see in those stages, what would you say? Because Susie was saying that she was closing business that she had been nurturing for like 2 years.
Yeah. I would say you're going to get a mix. So I have some really detailed data only because we just had a sales contest and we just came out of it, and I've been tracking an agent. So we have and this is just a success story that just shows if you come up with a consistent system, you can have amazing results. And it also goes back to, you have to call your leads. I can't get over that enough. You have to set up searches. You have to follow up with people and provide value. If you're not doing that, no system you have is going to do any of this for you. And the only reality is the more you buy into this. So I'm part of some other coaching groups, and, you know, I was sharing some of my frustrations with, you know, we have all of this opportunity and nobody's taking advantage of it. And their first go-to is like, well, why don't you do that? Why don't you call the customer? And I'm like, okay, I could call the customer, and then I could also go on a showing, and then I could write the contract for them. Should I just pay them at the end? Is that what I do? And they're like, well, you can take a little bit. And I'm like, well, I keep on taking a little bit. At a certain point, there's no money left. So you have to be involved in your business. And the most important thing you can be involved in my opinion, would be calling your leads. And let me tell you why. The reason is because nobody knows that market better than you, hopefully. And nobody can explain the value you provide better than you. And if you think an ISA can do that, or, you know, somebody else, unless it's like a really tight team of people that are like working together every day and understand kind of the philosophy, it's very difficult to do that. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't work. We've had success with some of that, but it's hard to keep consistent. The easiest way to keep it consistent is do the most important thing in your business, which is reaching out to people and building relationships, because that's where the business comes from, is they want to work with somebody they trust. And if they don't trust you or don't know you to trust you, it becomes a steeper hill to climb. So you want to lower that steepness a little bit and get more involved in your business. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy to make those calls consistently, but you had asked the question about when do we see conversion. So I have a brand new agent that started January 1st, just got her license January 1st. She's written 4 deals on her own already, and it's mid-February. She made 1,100 phone calls to, I don't know my assistant here, but I think it was, I want to say it was like 600 leads. Was that right? Yeah. We had given her 600 leads, some of them old, some of them new. So at first, when she first started, we gave her older ones so that she could practice and skin her knees a little bit. And then, as we got in, she started taking leads from what we call our Shark Tank. And she has signed, I think, like 8 people already as representing them. And she's just doing the basics. I mean, she's not overcomplicating it. And that's the thing. I think everybody's looking for that shiny object, or, the easy button, or how can they simplify their process? They want to come up with the newest thing. And how I would challenge you is listen to your broker or your team lead. You joined the team because you trusted them. They obviously have been doing this a while. They know how to do it. Follow their instruction first. And then once you're mastered that, then grow and add stuff to it. Then, add, I always say it's like a chili recipe, learn how to make regular chili first and then add some flavor to it. Don't come up with your whole own design the first time, so that's kind of what I would suggest. But when it comes to that, I would say where we see, so we also use Mojo, which until you get to a certain point in your company, don't start off with it. It's very complicated and very, it's a little glitchy at times. And that comes from a few different angles. But the reality is it works great if you have a system in place and you have someone to teach you how to use it. Outside of that, it's probably the most complicated things we have to train our agents on. And I mean, we spend hours and hours to get them there, but the results come from it long term if you invest in it. But I wouldn't start there. I would start with, like I said, just call the people. And then all I would say, once again, set up searches. But the second thing you can write down, if you're writing something down right now, is always set a follow-up after you clear an activity. Always. A CRM does not work unless you use follow-ups, because you're not telling the computer what to do next. And even if that follow-up is, I don't know what to do, talk to my team lead, or I don't know what to do later today, come back to this and figure out what to do. But you have to have the next step always. And that next step might be an appointment. Hopefully it is, but always have a follow-up. I don't know where I was going.
Love it.
I got so passionate about the follow-up. I don't even remember where I was going with that. But
well, I mean, we set out to talk about technology, and this is actually, I mean, like, if you're listening right now and you're like, I clicked on this video because I wanted to hear about like advanced techniques for, CRMs and websites, and Craig's here telling me about, calling my leads and setting up follow-ups, and that all sounds like basic stuff. It's because no matter who you listen to in our ecosystem, you're gonna hear the same thing, which is the basics are way more important than the shiny objects. And it's like we see the people that are most successful just master this. And I love your story about the new agent. It's what, 4 deals now after 1,100 calls in a month and a half, something like that.
It's nuts. It's really nuts.
That is an astounding pace.
But I mean, to add to that, the original question was, how many contacts they got to make, and with Mojo, we're tracking that. So we're seeing the average customer is not answering until call 6. Between call 6 and 8. So if you're calling once and leaving a message like, oh, call me back, I'm your best friend, they're not going to call you back. I'll tell you already, they're not going to call you back. So you got to call them. And the other thing we see a lot of success in right now is the war dialing, or we call it a double dial text, the DDT, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same thing. And the reason it works is think about how you're answering your own phone nowadays. You get so many robocalls and telemarketers and everything else that you never answer the phone unless you know who it's from. So
that's right.
The customers are doing the exact same thing. So if you're not calling them twice, you're basically extending the time you're going to have to do that again and again. So we find that if you do double dial them, they're picking up about 40% of the time the second call, which is pretty crazy.
I have this feeling, and right now it's a feeling. I don't have data to back it up, but I think that the double dial text, and I would probably suggest adding an email in there, an email with a phone number in the footer, because frequently I get phone calls, and I have my phone silenced because I get a lot of robocalls. So it's like if I've never answered a call from it or I've never dialed that number, then it doesn't even ring. But I do like it, the number pops up, and sometimes it pops up and it says Siri suggestion, maybe Craig Schneider, right? And so even though I've never seen your phone number before, I've never interacted with it, Siri is reading my email. Creepy as that is, we're letting the AIs help us. And, you know, it's suggesting that it's that person. So it's not an unknown phone number anymore. It is a like sort of known entity, and I'm much more likely to answer it. So this is, I'm trying to get a couple people to, you know, help me validate my assumption here, but like, let's see if we can work this angle with the iPhones.
So we're not doing the email. That might work well. We might want to try that as well. What we are doing in the text, though, is we are sending our contact card to them in the text as well. So assuming that it might connect up in the phone, like you're saying again. And a lot of people will be like, well, do you want them to know it's you? Because then they're going to definitely not answer your call when they know you're a realtor. And I'm like, well, if that's the case, you know, you're not going to convert them anyway. So the reality is I want to leave enough good information on a daily basis that they're intrigued, or they're like, wow, this person's provided me a lot of value. I'm ready now. I'm going to talk to them. And the crazy thing is everybody's like, well, you know, don't people get pissed off at you when you call them, you know, because we call them in the first day, like 12, or I'm sorry, in the first week, like 12 times. So like reach out to them 12 times, I should say. So the reality is like, actually, I think it's 20 times, I think is what the number was. But anyway, the reality is they more people than not apologize to you, which is crazy because they're just like, I'm so sorry, I've been busy, I haven't been able to return your call.
I was trying to remember who said that to me, and it was you. It was you on the Lab Code Agents webinar. It's like most people apologize.
It's nuts. Like, and when they do, you're just like in shock because you're ready for them to yell at you. Now, do you get some people to yell at you? Yeah. There's going to be jerks in the world all the time. There's a percentage, I would say it's less than 5% that are just jerks. And the only way you can overcome that is just like wait for it, get excited about it. And then when it happens, laugh about it. I mean, because they're just being jerks. Like, how is that hurting you at all? Like, they had a bad day. So, you know, I always find sport in like converting them like, hey, it sounds like you're having a tough time. You know, is there a better time I can call you? Or, you know, and then once again, a decent person will say, no, you're right. I'm just having a bad day. I'm sorry. You know, a totally terrible person is going to take it to the next level. And then you just got to move on. So, but you guys get it. So, I mean, Our conversion rate we're seeing on answers to people who are signing up on our site in that first call cycle, we're looking at about 8% on average. I got some agents that are as high as 15%. I think a little of that plays with the whitelisting of their phone too. So that is another tip. As of the beginning of this year, the federal government has blacklisted a lot of people's phone numbers. So you show up as that spam call or whatnot. So if you can find a service that can whitelist you, there's a lot of services that can do that. You can pay, or if you're part of a subscription like Mojo, they'll do it for free. They'll whitelist your phone number, and that has helped. We did that about a month ago.
And I would throw another tip out there. Like, you know, we're seeing a lot of industry movement around texting and, you know, the autoresponders and that kind of thing. And so there is opt-out language that now is required by the carriers to be added to messages. And, you know, like I said, we've done a bunch of analytics on the back end in aggregate to see if that impacts conversion. And the thing is that it doesn't. So that's this kind of the surprising takeaway. So, Craig, I am up against a hard stop here, and I know that you have way more to give, but unfortunately, I got to go. Where can people find you?
So I got my email. I don't know if it's going to show on the screen, but Craig@norchar.com, if it's going to show up under my name there. If not, it's spelled CRAIG at NORCHAR.com. That, or you can just go to norchar.com, our website. It's a Real Geeks site. You can check it out. The only thing I'll say is if you do sign up to see what like our workflows and stuff feel like, just make sure you sign up as like that you're testing or something, so that my agents don't waste a ton of time trying to reach out to you. I'm already seeing all the emails and stuff, but I don't want my agents to waste time calling you. If I can avoid that, you'll appreciate that from your side.
I think that is a fair ask. All right, everyone. Craig, thanks so much for joining us. This was a great episode. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button down below if you're on YouTube. If you're on Apple Podcasts, we would love a 5-star review. Same thing on Spotify. Hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out. There'll be links down below with all of the material that Craig talked about, and we'll catch you next time.